DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast. We're back after I guess technically year-plus hiatus, but definitely going to be a little bit different here than in the past. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you once again for this podcast. Going to be a little bit different. We'll handle, I guess, this stuff up front here. You know, we're going to move to just being a weekly podcast, coming into like half-hour-ish type stuff. And then kind of just break in during the week as needed if there's a big enough news story or anything like that. But nothing uber crazy. And I know, Kyle, we're pretty excited to get going here with this. It's fun. Well, I think it'll be a fun time for New York baseball stuff here in 2026.
Yeah, definitely agree. There's a lot of years in the past where, one team's good and the other's not. But luckily, since we've started this, I think both teams have been pretty good.
Yeah, so let's kind of jump into it here. I think, and I don't know, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on this with the way I'm going to propose it. To me, the Mets and the Yankees this year are kind of on the same coin, but on two different sides of it in a way. The Yankees, for the most part, are running it back compared to 2025, whereas the Mets kind of come in on not a hard reset, but they shake up the core a little bit. They trade away guys. They let guys walk in free agency. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like how the Yankees operated in like 2020, 2021, 2022 in a way where you just kind of saw guys kind of exit out, right? You know, your Gary Sanchez's, your Aaron Hicks, those type of guys. Whereas, the Mets, they let Pete Alonso go, right? They send Nimmo off to Texas. They bring in Peralta from the Brewers. But it's kind of like one of those things where the Yankees clearly, whether we agree or not with their philosophy, like what they had for the most part. So let's run it back. The Mets, on the other hand, view it as we do have some pieces here, but let's swap some things out and try and make that next step to better postseason aspirations.
Yeah, and after missing the playoffs, stunningly missing the playoffs, I think changes need to be made. I don't think you could really run that team back. Seemed like there was just maybe some drama in the clubhouse. I don't know really who among who, but something needed to be done, and they did just that. And they did lose yesterday, but and the Pirates played them tough all weekend. But again, it's just one series, and I think they did make some changes that I'm excited to see how they play out. Marcus Semien being one of them. Just changing the vibes, I think it's going to be maybe different this year. And I think the bullpen, of course, is going to be much better. That's always the thing with the Mets. I think we talk about it every time we do these. Are the Mets ever going to go out and spend money on some relievers? And they did that in the offseason.
Yeah, and I know none of them are going to be, well, at least on paper, converted to starting roles. But you never fully know, I guess, there. But yeah, I mean, they go out and they get Luke Weaver and Devin Williams from the Yankees in free agency. And it's definitely, I remember we talked about it in the fall, right, Kyle, how we kind of felt like this Mets team, for whatever reason, had this weird clubhouse vibe thing going on that something just didn't seem like it was adding up. And, whether they officially confirmed it, I feel like is up for debate, right? But like we kind of got the sense that, okay, maybe it was Brandon Nimmo being a catalyst of stuff in the clubhouse to a degree, right? And we kind of mentioned already, right? He's shipped off to Texas, and you kind of have the Mets on one side. They are letting the youth kind of get some experience, right? Carson Bench was the opening day starter out in the outfield, for example, and they're kind of letting him go. Same thing with the pitching to a degree, right? Noel McLean makes the opening day roster. Guy like Jonah Tong, though, starts here in AAA with Syracuse. You can kind of tell, I think, for them, they at least have the idea of where they want to be throughout the year. Whereas on the Yankees side of things, with them kind of running it back, definition of insanity, right? Like it's just kind of like all those things where, we'd sit here through the winter and be like, is Cashman going to do something? Like what's going on here? And you know, yeah, it's one of those things where I think we both of us prefer to see them kind of do something. I don't mind certain degrees of what they're doing, allowing certain spots to run it back, but I feel like there's a lot more question marks for the Yankees right now than there are the Mets.
Yeah, and one of the question marks I have for the Yankees is the opposite of the Mets, and that's the bullpen. I thought all winter they should have made more moves for the bullpen. They didn't. They're kind of relying on guys last year that struggled, like Jake Bird when he first came over and then got optioned. He did get out of a jam the other night, but again, that's one appearance, and I just worry about this pen. I worry about the control issues with Camilo DeBall, even though he looked good. Again, though, it's one series. David Bednar is like the only guy I like really trust. And yeah, I think the bullpen is going to end up being a problem. I mean, if these starting pitchers don't go deep, um, I'm not sure how many games the Yankees are going to be able to win, even with a really good offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like we kind of mentioned from the top here, this is more going to be just kind of what we expect for the year, right? With these teams, today's episode, it's tough to really fully dissect, right? Just 3 games from opening day through the weekend, and how good are the Giants really? How good are the or not good are the Pirates really? Um, I know this is obviously a New York baseball podcast. I have a lot of stock in the Pirates this year, but here nor there for that portion of things. It's one of those things though that yeah, I was talking with some people yesterday and they were just like, yeah, the Yankees did really well. They held the Giants to 1 run through the series. I'm like, yeah, but like, is that more indicative of the Giants stuff or the Yankees stuff? And like you said, I get the Yankees, Jake Bird in particular, for example, pitched out of a jam and everything, but like how much can we really grade that on the curve right now with only 3 games in? And that's the part with that.
Yeah, and they did something you don't usually see in at least a Major League Baseball game, which is turn 4 inning-ending double plays, including to end the game. Like I was trying to find some research, like some stats on that to see when that last happened, because you might see teams turn a lot of double plays in a game, but inning-ending double plays, like timely double plays like that, I think luck was on the side for the Yankees in San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Just pitchers' best friends, right? I guess obviously the double play. So
Yeah.
um, the other part with the Yankees too, we didn't mention it, but is on the pitching side. Rolling with 4 true starters at the moment in the rotation to start the year. Part of me feels like this is them fully believing Garrett Cole is further along the track than maybe the perceived notion was initially through the timeline. That's something, we talked about a ton back in the early days of the podcast, right? It's just how mysterious the Yankees always are on the medical side of things. And I'm still not maybe a full fan of going 4-man only right now. And I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on this because I just feel, and this isn't a knock on whether it's Will Warren, Cam Schlittler, or objectively even Luis Heel, who was the odd man out and started the year at AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. But I'd rather have those 3 in the rotating 5 with Rodon and Fried to start the year. And then you can make your decision because frankly, I view this from the baseball side. In an ideal world, Cam Schlittler has no issues, right? And it's perfect and grand. But you're talking about a guy who essentially has 1 month of major league experience. The film maybe not fully out yet. I just fear that by the time Cole comes back and you have to make what would have been a proverbial decision anyway, did you risk maybe doing something with Heel on the back end. I don't know. I just not a fan of that four-man rotation thing right now.
Yeah, and their reasoning for it is, the off days mixed in the beginning of the year. They're not going to really need a true starter, a fifth starter until I believe April 11th is the date. I don't have it in front of me right now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of thought too, if you can get your starting pitchers an extra day, especially earlier in the year, Max Fried, made it pitched a career high in innings last year, for example. Cam Schlittler is going to pitch probably a career high in innings if he doesn't get hurt. Will Warren, do you trust him? Like you said, I'm not saying he hasn't improved and he's trending in the right direction, but yeah, I kind of agree that it wouldn't have been a bad idea to mix Luis Hill. You know, Flash him on. It's so funny because he can't go all 3 games. I mean, these guys like Ryan Weathers tonight is making his first start of the year.
Mhm.
Seattle's not the Giants. We don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah.
So I think we just kind of have to wait and see, before we kind of judge the four-man rotation to start off.
Yeah, and that's like a good point too. Is right. We kind of forget the weather's component of this to a degree, um, because there was to me whatever reason a debate in the offseason of whether or not he would be a starter, bullpen guy, swing guy. Right. To me, if you're going to bring back Ryan Yarbrough, that's probably his true role. Right, is that bullpen swing guy, not Ryan Weathers, who, mind you, a lot of health question marks with him. But when he's been on in his short career so far at the big league level with the Padres and Marlins, has been a very good pitcher. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, like you mentioned, with the Seattle lineup. Um, how do things fare fully here? I guess, but I, I don't know. I think I still maybe part of it's too for me, Kyle, is we're coming off a season where the Yankees at one point did trot out a six-man rotation and didn't question it. And you go from a six-man thing to a four-man thing. And I just kind of sit here and wonder, like, what is the game plan actually at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And as I said, I don't know how you can trust that bullpen. Of course, they're gonna have to pretend like they trust it. But for example, if Ryan Weathers has a short start tonight, you're getting into that bullpen in the beginning of a series against a Mariners team that's, again, in my opinion, not the Giants. You're gonna start seeing the trouble I think that I have with the bullpen. Good thing though, again, is they do have more off days earlier in the year. So their bullpen shouldn't get too taxed, but I mean, even last year when the bullpen was pretty good to start off the year, I was like, man, they're overusing these guys. Luke Weaver, Devin Williams, even I thought was overused a little bit early on. Um, and now, I mean, I just think it's going to get exposed, and I hope I'm wrong, of course. And I think a trade is definitely going to be needed at the deadline.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. Yeah, I don't. That's the other part too with the Luis Hill thing that kind of sticks in the back of my head. Where are they doing the thing where they are just like, yeah, but we have Luis Hill right here, type thing, which we've seen the Yankees essentially do, for better or worse with various guys for the past couple seasons, and I just don't think you can do that this year at this point.
And one quick side note, they're doing something that I can't remember. I'd have to look this up after we get off here, but they're rolling with 3 lefties in their bullpen. I cannot remember the last time the Yankees did that. Usually they like to only keep one lefty in their pen. What,
Yeah.
3? Maybe, like I don't know. I can't think of way back, maybe like 2016 or maybe not even that far back.
Well,
But yeah,
I
it
was
just
just
seems odd
say,
to me.
yeah, I was gonna say for me, just like quickly in the back of my head, and I don't know if they technically all played together, but like they had Damaso Marte, Phil Koch, and Boone Logan at least kind of all together. Like I said, I don't know if they were necessarily all together, but I mean, we're talking 2008, 2009 at that point. But that's the only major one I'm really sticking out in my head would be that. So, eh, I don't know. Very different game now than it was then, even 15 plus years ago.
Yeah, they had like I think it was Brent Hedrick facing Matt Chapman the other day,
Yeah,
and I was like, wow, I don't like this matchup, but he struck him out.
yeah,
So, like I said, I think luck was just on their side in the opening weekend. We'll see how it pans out.
yeah. I remember I got I got the notification for that specific at bat because they did the pitching change. I'm just like, so we're going from Hedrick to Bird, huh? I'm like, okay, that's a choice. So obviously this was right
Yep.
after that essentially, but like it was like one of those things where I'm just like, oh, we're doing this already, game two, like great stuff. So all right, I think that takes care of mostly the main stuff here in terms of kind of through the weekend and everything in the grand scheme of it. The Mets stuff for me, I was intrigued in just kind of like how the first kind of couple days from the fans really, like I said, to me, it's a new era in Queens, essentially. Um, it's very apparent this is now kind of the Lindor team, if you will, right? Officially, you're off of Alonso, you're off of Nimmo, but you're kind of allowing, to me, the actual kind of glue and catalyst of that team to be the true leader now. And you see more of the young guys take a better foothold here. I think it's a lot of exciting stuff going on in Queens right now if you're a Mets fan. And, whether I don't know, it's tough. Like I brought my notes I did from my baseball preview episode I did with Nick Felice over on Fresh Takes and one of the podcasts here. And, I don't necessarily have the Mets winning the division. I have them as a playoff team, but like this is a good to me springboard year of trying to figure or really finalize what you want the next couple of years to look like. And yeah, you lose the game yesterday on Sunday to Pittsburgh and everything, but like there are far worse scenarios to kind of come out of the gate in my minds against a team that frankly I think could be pretty frisky in the NL Central, but like here nor there in that sense. I like the vibes on the Mets this year. You kind of like I said, you turn the page and you kind of move on and you maybe not hard reset, but you do enough that you try and make this team fun again that it was, kind of like 3 or 4 years ago in a way where, the guys are just kind of out there playing, you're having fun. The fans are engaged every night with it. And at the end of the day, you kind of get the headlines back again from the Yankees that they had last year.
Yeah. And I think the fans and the overall takeaway from the Mets opening series was Bo Bichette. And I mean, come on, 3 games. It's New York. The spotlight's totally different. Even though the Toronto made their World Series run last night, and he was or last night, last year, and he was in the spotlight all the time. I mean, New York is just different, and I think it's 1 for 14 with like 7 strikeouts or something like that. The guy's going to turn it around. I really actually like the moves that the Mets did, and I think they're going to be better. Of course, this year, and they're going to be a playoff team. Um, maybe just the starting pitching I worry about a little bit. But I don't know. I think this Mets team is definitely going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I fully agree. And like I said, I don't know really maybe where they fully stack up. I kind of view the Phillies for them as being the main kind of hurdle, if you will, within the division. That being said, though, if everything kind of sticks for the Mets, right? You mentioned like that starting rotation, for example, right? If Freddie Peralta puts up essentially the same numbers he was able to in Milwaukee, right? Can you get Kodai Senga to turn around to what he was when he first got to New York now 2 years ago? Uh, does Peterson kind of continue the path he's had, right? Does Holmes continue to evolve in that starting role? And then, frankly, the way I view it, the young guys, whether it ends up fully being McLean or Tong, what fully can those guys do in a full year or half year kind of plus of work? And I think, does it rival Philly? Maybe not necessarily, but like I think the peaks of that could certainly match or surpass what Philadelphia has.
Yeah, and it would make it a very interesting division if the Mets could be at the top of the Phillies. Saw the Phillies get kind of beat up
Yeah.
yesterday, but of course, I still think they're going to be a big threat to the Mets. And that was insane.
Well, we might have Might have lost you, Kyle. You still there? Or...
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. Yeah. All right. So that kind of, yeah, Tex or the Philly thing. I don't know, man. I was at the as I diverge off here for a second too. I was at the playoff opening game for them last year against the Dodgers, and just the way they ended up essentially falling apart in that game was. I don't want to say maybe you get the PTSD element from stuff like that, but like for a team that's essentially also running it back, I'm like sitting there going like, wow, like how do you not do a little bit more in the off season in a way, but that's for I guess those fans and people who cover them to worry about, not so much us at the moment.
And don't sleep on the 3-0 Marlins.
Yo, that's another no, honestly, that's another team I do have some stock in this year because like they have talent. I've always loved the pitching coming out of there recently. Like I view them as a team that could get in for a wild card. So, that's just my thoughts.
I'm all for chaos.
Yes, we are. All right. So I think that pretty much does it overall here. The Yankees, we mentioned, they're at Seattle and then travel back to have the home opener against the Miami Marlins this weekend. We'll touch more on this next week, but I do want to make note of this given the Mets schedule. So they're on the road, they're at St. Louis, they're at San Fran for this week, only to come back east for one series and then back out west. So something to keep an eye on there in the early season. I don't know who they upset in the scheduling gods, but just brutal, like really weird. Like you're going out west for like you're coming back home for one series. It's not even like somewhere in the middle. Like they're going back to City Field for 3 games and then going back to the West Coast. Just crazy.
The only thing I can think of is they're worried about having too many home games and the back end of March and April because of potential snow still falling and just cold weather. So they're trying to send as many West Coast games as they can earlier in the schedule. I mean, maybe that's their thinking. Of course, we'll never know, but I think that's maybe the only logical thing I can think of.
I mean, you're probably closer to being right than I am in the sense of that. But yeah, when I saw that today, I'm like, so I want to get. I'm like, look, I'm like, I'm not imagining this, right? Like they're in St. Louis, they're in San Fran this week. They travel back home for a series, only to go back out west on a back-to-back night. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, for one of the opening series or well opening weeks rather, I'm like, wow, this is kind of brutal in the early sense, but eh, maybe you'd almost rather have that as opposed to like middle of July or August, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I that might be the better thing because late in the year West Coast trips kind of suck.
Yeah, yeah, and especially, I mean, dog days of summer too. You're at that. We already look. It's baseball. We know there's going to be injuries. I mean, I guess if you want to do this now, you're probably better off doing it now, early on, when you're still essentially 100%, not kind of fluttering in at 75%.
For sure.
All right. So we will break out from here for the week on Concrete Jungle. Appreciate everybody for listening in and tuning in. Can't wait to get going with the season again. Like I said, mainly going to be Yankees and Mets, obviously. We'll touch maybe on some of the minor league stuff every now and then when there's major stuff. I know they get going this week officially. So weather's supposed to be pretty good up here in upstate New York. So if you're able to get to Rochester, Syracuse, or anywhere in between, go ahead and do that. And then yeah, we'll break in during the week if there's any big breaking news or anything like that through the season. But yeah, at this point, we'll be seeing everybody on Mondays, and it might look a lot like this year, where it's Zoom and over the phone like this. Might have some stuff in studio throughout the time, but really, Kyle, appreciate you, and can't wait to really get going with this again this year. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, going to be a lot of fun.
All right. So you can find Concrete Jungle here on fingerlakes1.com, the FO1 YouTube channel, as well as all major podcasting platforms. That's where you can find the audio feed as well for this podcast. So we will talk again next week, everybody. Enjoy the first full week of baseball.